Denis Shakurov and Kasper Rosalowski here with Elias Zepeda to break down the action from the TUF 23 finale and also the craziness that's happened today. Fellas, it's been a crazy sort of day here. You think one thing's done, and then more issues pop up. But before we get to those, let's talk about this main event between Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Claudia Gadelha. A lot of discussion about who really won this fight. Elias, when you popped out into the media room, you had a bit of a theory about this thing being a bit of a draw. Yeah. It's a little bit of time has passed, but what's your thought on the fight? Did the right person get the hand raised?
You know, I think yes and no. I think if we're going by the way that fights are scored or supposed to be scored round by round, boxing style, then I could see that being the case. In that instance, it comes down to who you think won the third. I couldn't decide who I thought won the third. I thought Joanna was clearly winning it, and then she got dropped. So my hedging my bet was kind of saying, well, let's have it 10-10. In which case, that leaves me with a draw, saying, yeah, I think the challenger definitely won the first 2 rounds, and the champion definitely won the last 2, and the first one's the middle one's a draw. However, the way I like to score fights, kind of similar to the old Pride way, in that you take the fight on the whole, you look at the whole trajectory of the fight. In that instance, I definitely think Joanna won the fight of fights, as BJ Penn used to say. You know, like, who do you want to be at the end of it? Who is really finishing stronger? So I think the right person, in my own personal criteria, won. But I definitely I thought the judges' scores were ridiculous. I had a big problem with those for sure.
He brings up a good point, Kasper. A 10-8 round. Do you see that? Did you see that in the fight? Did you agree with it?
Not necessarily, because both the 4th and the 5th, while they were dominant for Joanna, a 10-8 should be a round where the person who loses it doesn't really get much offense at all, and Claudia did get a lot of offense. I mean, I know a lot of people here in the media room after that 3rd round and Claudia looking very tired, people thought, look, this fight's going to be finished, and I said it wouldn't surprise me if it does go to decision, because Claudia is very tough, and anytime she did sort of get hurt in any trouble, Joanna would sort of rush in and get very close, close the distance, and Claudia would tie her up, you know, clinch up, put her against the fence, and was able to hang in there. Just amazingly tough. So I don't agree with the 10-8s. Like Elias, I do have issues with the judges' scorecards. And it's interesting the point you brought up about rounds, because, you know, fights like, say, Johnny Hendricks and GSP, they're scored differently whether you look at it as a whole or round by round. In this case, I think both cases, or both ways, Joanna actually won. I do think she won the 3rd round, just purely from a damage perspective. She landed the more strikes. Claudia did take her down, control her. She didn't do that much, though, while she had her down, in my opinion at least. So I think 3, 4, 5 clearly to Joanna, and the first 2 rounds to Claudia Gadelha, which in a lot of ways makes it even more impressive that Joanna was able to come back and win.
Well, there you go. And for the record books, I actually thought Claudia won that 3rd round when I was watching it back here in the media room. So it's an interesting fight, another close one. But Joanna walks out as the champion, looking to fight in New York at UFC 205. Elias, surely not. I mean, this fight does not make sense for New York whatsoever.
Joanna fighting generally in New York? I mean, if they got space, why not? I'd love to see her get more attention. I think, depending on what the ratings were here, I think this could really increase her star, because it was just a phenomenal close fight where she had to come from behind. If she's healthy, I'd love to see her fight there. Just give this woman as many big stages as we can, as far as I'm concerned.
It's interesting. She's had some big ones over in Australia for UFC 193. Claudia Gadelha, though, in a difficult position. She's lost to Joanna twice. If you're in Claudia's camp, what kind of advice do you give her? What do you do from here on out?
It's a tough one, because she did try and go in lighter into this fight. She tried to diet more and just be smaller in general. She still looked very big in the fight, incredibly muscly, and that was to her detriment. I don't know what you do. I mean, she's either going to have to work on her cardio, her conditioning, or go on some kind of new diet where maybe she can shed some more muscle. Either way, she's not going to be fighting Joanna anytime soon, probably for the next at least couple of years. She's going to be benched, so to speak. She's going to have to climb her way to the top. You've got Carolina against Rose Namajunas, and obviously that's a clear #1 contender. So yeah, Claudia in that sense is nowhere near it. And just quickly to sort of talk about New York and Joanna, whether she should belong there. Like you mentioned, the big stages. She was in a new market, which was Melbourne, Australia, UFC 193. Huge event. You know, to this date has the biggest attendance, or was that beaten by UFC 198? It may have been. Anyway, I don't see a problem with her being in New York. I mean, if it's not John Jones, which it probably won't be, and if it's not Weidman, and it's going to be Ronda Rousey, why not stick Joanna there?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd rather see Weidman versus Rockhold in the co-main event. For the main event, I don't know if she makes much sense, but we'll see what happens. But you mentioned died Casper Basilius, so I want to ask you about something that happened earlier this morning. Johnny Hendricks, a guy that we spoke to in our last episode, who was sure that everything was going to go fine in his diet, had a very, very, very difficult cut. He was shaking up on stage, really struggled and missed weight. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that, and what went through your head about his future?
It was tough to see that again. He has a great nutrition coach for his last couple fights, Lou Giordano. I talked to Lou on Wednesday, and they seem to feel fine about the way it's gone. I wasn't able, unfortunately, to talk to folks in the camp today because I heard from them or got messages from them during this past card, so I was kind of busy. But I know that there's a lot of uproar and a lot of discontent, it seems like, within the camp about it. Clearly, just because Johnny didn't, he struggled again. Not making weight is an issue. Losing money is an issue. But just being in the type of physical shape he's going to be in after struggling once again is the larger issue. And I can't for the life of me understand why he insists on being so big. I don't know exactly how big he was walking around this past camp, but big enough where a 5'9" man had trouble weighing 170 pounds, which is kind of strange. I know I was told that they felt comfortable enough with the way the past weight cut had gone for the Stephen Thompson fight that they went back and did more strength work again, which they had kind of neglected in the past. I don't know what kind of effect that may or may not have had, but it's tough to see a really great world-class fighter struggle with things before he even gets into the ring in years that could still be his prime.
5'9" and possibly going to middleweight after this fight. Cass, how do you think Johnny Hendricks would cope if he has to go up to middleweight, which I expect Dana White to tell him after this fight with Kevin Gastelum?
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge sort of repercussion. It's one thing putting your body through that, and it's one thing I guess, losing the trust of the fans. And that's the thing with Dana White. He's probably not going to want him anywhere near a title shot, because if you can't make 171, they're going to have very little faith in him making 170. I don't know, maybe he can reinvent himself at middleweight. Like you mentioned, 5'9", that's really tough. There haven't been too many successful short middleweights. Guys like Rockhold, who I believe is 6'3", Michael Bisping is, I think, I want to say 6'1" or 6'2", Anderson Silva 6'2", Chris Weidman's around about 6'1". He'll probably be more powerful. I don't know how well that power would actually translate. Not everybody is an Anthony Rumble Johnson. He's got a wrestling base, which could be a good thing, but he doesn't have a big reach either. It's one thing being 5'9". You may have freakishly long arms. I mean, GSP, not a tall guy, but he does have a long reach. Johnny Hendricks doesn't really have that. So I don't know. He's going to have to do a lot of different things, but I think his days at welterweight, they are certainly numbered, but his days as an actual welterweight title contender, they seem like they're over.
Well, let's talk about titles for a second, because that morning, Submission Radio was on hand waiting for Miesha Tate to weigh in, and we waited from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. It got to 10 a.m., and that's when Miesha Tate went out and weighed in. We weren't sure what exactly was going on. It got so close for the fight not becoming a title fight and possibly being moved off a main event because Miesha Tate didn't weigh in on time. We spoke to Rob Follis, who said there was a tough weight cut in this one. Elias, what were your thoughts when you heard about what Miesha went through and how late she came and how close she came to almost turning this into a normal fight?
I was pretty surprised, because you don't really think of Miesha having these types of struggles. I'm sure her weight cut is always really hard, but she always comes in on weight, if I'm not mistaken. I caught up with her coach, Robert Follis, after the weight cut and after her weighing in, and he kind of put it into an interesting perspective for me, and I'm sure it's completely accurate. First, he reminded me, he said, all right, almost not making weight is still making weight. So he's like, we made it. So that's point one. And point two, he says, you know, they've, for over a decade, been cutting on a certain schedule. And now the weigh-ins are moved earlier in the day, much earlier into the day. And although he says he really loves that because it's good for probably for their health, more recovery time after weighing in and depleting yourself before the fight, he says that there's some transitioning. Now all of a sudden you're cutting later at night, the night prior, than you're used to doing. And you know, when you're dealing with that amount of precision and already trying to drop weight from extremely lean people, all sorts of variants, I guess, play a role in it. So he kind of played it off as an adjustment period to this whole new weigh-in regulations, maybe IV. He didn't mention IV stuff, but even just the schedule. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I am curious as to if it was such a tough cut overall that it might affect her in the fight. I don't really know if I can make a determinant on that, but it is something to consider.
And I just got to add to that, for those who weren't there at the early weigh-ins and didn't see what happened, it was an insane situation, because obviously there was 3 fighters left. There was Johnny Hendricks, Kelvin Gastelum, and then Miesha Tate. And, you know, being there for 2 hours, you sort of just want, all right, when's the next one coming out? We want to sort of find out. And it got to like 5 minutes before 10, which is the official cutoff, and Miesha Tate still wasn't there. And while everybody's discussing what the ramifications would be of Miesha Tate not, you know, making the official, you know, actually weighing in at 10 o'clock, it hit 9:59. We were like, wow, there's literally a minute left. It hit 10 o'clock, and everybody thought, wow, Miesha Tate is literally not going to be here. It is not going to be a title fight. And then boom, the curtain moved, and there she was and made weight. So it was a pretty miraculous situation.
Well, let's talk about this title fight for a second, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday. Now the new main event, a lot of people saying Miesha Tate is going to win it, but do you see a scenario where Amanda Nunes can actually take this? And funnily enough, UFC 200 could finish with Amanda Nunes as the champion.
Yeah. I think Miesha should be the favorite as a defending champion, but I've liked Amanda Nunes for a long time. I think she's been in this position. She should have gotten the title shot earlier. She has a big upside. If you don't want her on top of you. I know Miesha has the wrestling advantage, but weird things happen. And if Amanda Nunes gets that top position, Miesha Tate could have a very rough night, because Amanda does not waste times with getting to work with strikes, and she hits really, really freaking hard. And also, her stand-up is improving a lot, and she may not be quite as fluid as Miesha, maybe, but you definitely don't want to let her hit you on the chin. So I think she's a really game, really dangerous opponent. The champ should be considered the favorite, but I think it's a legitimate threat.
Well, speaking of the champ being considered the favorite, there was a very interesting promo played at the weigh-ins going into this fight, where Dana White basically implicated or insinuated that even though Miesha Tate is the baddest person in the world when it comes to her weight class and, you know, where she fights, there's another fighter who's badder, and that's Ronda Rousey. Now, a lot of people are sort of taking that as a bit of a clue as to whether or not Ronda Rousey will be there tomorrow, and if Miesha Tate wins, this is a way for them to set up that rematch and set up another big fight. Cass, first of all, the promo. What did you think when you saw it?
Yeah, everybody unanimously, not just the media, but the fans in general started booing. Oh, the media didn't boo, but everybody picked up on that. I believe the words were something on the lines of, Miesha Tate is the most dangerous woman or most dangerous female fighter besides Ronda Rousey, which was a very bizarre thing to slip into a promo promoting a title fight with Miesha Tate, especially just a day away. And obviously everybody didn't like that. Why slip that in? Why slip that in unless you're trying to push for a certain angle? It wouldn't surprise me. I think Ronda Rousey has been on the bench for so long, and there's been so many questions surrounding whether she'll even return. If you're going to make an announcement, why not do it on such a big stage? Why not do it like UFC 200? Then there's the other thing about Lesnar versus Hunt. When we attended that press conference and they announced that Jon Jones was removed from the card, Dana White literally kicked off that press conference by saying Brock Lesnar versus Mark Hunt is the main event. That was the first thing he said before he even said anything about Jon Jones. And then by the time morning happened, when Jon Jones addressed things, all of a sudden Miesha Tate and Amanda Nunes is the main event. Why make that switch? What happened in those few hours? We see how certain things have, you know, come about in such a short amount of time. You know, Brock Lesnar fighting at UFC. There are some people who were saying that he was meant to be Fedor. You know, Jon Jones being pulled, Anderson Silva coming to replace him. Last second has been the theme of UFC 200 and this whole week. So it wouldn't surprise me if at some point, even in the last 24, 48, however many hours, they decided to, you know, make things happen with Ronda Rousey, and somehow they've nailed something down and they want to, if not set a specific date, at least bring her back and make the challenge. And maybe that's why they want this Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate fight to be in the main event. So nothing would surprise me.
Well, it's interesting how she couldn't eat apples for a while, because it seems like to me she might be going to the Big Apple to fight Miesha Tate, UFC 205. I mean, we were talking about Joanna, but I think possibly this would be the fight they'd be going for. Some reports coming, Elias, where people are saying because Travis Browne is here, the camp and all of that, that Ronda Rousey is here and she will sort of pop up after the event and challenge Miesha Tate, or maybe even Amanda Nunes and the winner. Do you think this is likely? Do you suspect this could happen?
I think it's entirely possible. I don't have any inside knowledge that the fight is signed, but yeah, Ronda's around. Her partner's fighting this weekend. As you said, things have been happening quickly. The UFC is definitely moving aggressively. That Apple, quote came after Dana White had said way prematurely that, oh yeah, no, Ronda's great. She came on and specified, yeah, no, I can't even chew. I don't know when I'll be able to chew right again. The point being, they've been pushing her hard to fight again because they make a lot of money off of her. Certainly, she makes a lot of money as well, I imagine. But yeah, I could see it being possible that they either have this fight signed and they're teasing it and they want to announce it, or that they're trying to push Ronda in the direction of being amenable to that arrangement. Certainly, Ronda's got to feel that a fight against Miesha Tate is, or I guess Amanda Nunes as well, is her best chance at getting the title back. Strangely enough, even though Miesha Tate beat Holly Holm, Holly is a tougher matchup for Ronda, as we've seen. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that's happened and is going to be announced soon, or if it's in the works and they're trying to nudge Ronda over and saying, look, we're about to give you the spotlight again and tempt her over. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That could make a lot of sense. If I had to guess, I would say it's a good possibility.
Well, there you go. A lot of surprises happening, and maybe one more surprise at UFC 200. We'll have to wait and see. For now, guys, jump on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/submissionradio.au. A ton of content. Jump on there. We're constantly putting up new stuff. Thank you so much, Elias. Thank you so much, Casper. Thank you so much, guys. Another post-fight show coming tomorrow.